Having learned a few things about this walk in life, today seemed to have some extraordinary significance in relationship to man and the universe, man and his purpose in it. Oftentimes you've heard me say that we have a purpose. Each of us individually have a God-given gift to utilize here in these physical forms, in these physical bodies, during these days and during these times. And each of us having these individual gifts, when exercising them and organizing them around what they represent, we find that every good and every service that we as a people have thought, determined, when necessary, exist. And those needs are being met by the exercise of these particular gifts, indicative of a reality that was programmed, that a certain program renders a certain result. I guess it's to say it is the fruit of a particular type of seed. So even peace and prosperity and joy is possible if the proper seed is planted. And so I was sitting here thinking about today why it's so difficult. I was reminded that when I was in school studying as a social scientist, I knew then that my focus was bringing those things that satisfied dreams to not just me or some, but to all of us. And that my focus being that, I recognized that these things could not be learned in school, or should I say they are not being taught in school. And so my continuing the education on a formal level, hopes of being able to determine these, it just wasn't happening. So it became apparent that if a lesson was to be learned, it would be learned outside in the world in which we live. And I'm sitting here thinking today that for every situation there's an opposite. I'm sitting here thinking about good. And for good to exist, there has got to be a bad. For right to exist, there has got to be a wrong. For a male, there has to be a female. There is an opposite, it seems, to everything. And that thought alone began to make it apparent the world in which we live. In this world in which we live, we are not of our own making, nor is anything. And yet it appears that we are in a process of determining, a process of learning. And it hit me especially hard today, since I've been trying to see if my focus can be maintained on doing good or doing right. I thought about Mitt Romney now that he's outshined Barack Obama in the first presidential debate, and he's tripping. And I hear him saying what the jobs he is going to bring, because he knows how he's going to make this nation so powerful, and how we're going to maintain this military might superior to all. There's a whole bunch of messages in what that man was saying. And most people would never get it. But he was speaking to a group of people who feel exactly like he does. But there are also other ramifications of his statements. And some are such as this. He was saying that the same attitude that allowed some people to sit with boldness and proudness, whereas they called other human beings animals and treated them as such. People who were always right and everyone else was always wrong. And people who would actually drop a nuclear bomb on you if you don't yield to their direction. I mean, when you think about these kinds of things, for people and what extent they'll go to have their way, then if you think about, if you're blessed enough to know anything about God, what is God's way? All of you've heard something about it. But putting that which you have heard about it, though it might not be accurate, it's probably on the right path. So what I'm saying is this. Why would you sit around in a world that has no compassion whatsoever and not recognize something different if you knew and understood and had the right training about a God? Here is a world where they want to force you to follow the rules. It's not even about whether the rules are right or wrong. The fact is, they are our rules, so says the state. These are the rules that we who got power, we who are respected, have determined and now are imposing on you who disagree. You follow these rules, or there's a consequence. And all of these rules serve a purpose that has nothing to do with making things right or making things better for the masses. So you think about what we have heard about a God. We say that God is all good, God is all loving, God is all of this, and God is all of that. He's everything. Answer to everything. And with God, our dreams are supposed to come true. We're supposed to have the desires of our heart. We should have life, and that even more abundant than we can imagine. All because of God. That's the way God is. And God's basic principles set aside are to this extent. Love God with all your heart, body, soul. Yeah, what you want? What? No. Well, I don't care. I ain't changing. All right, bye. Just to try to interrupt my thought. Ain't that some stuff? Well, anyway, God's basic rules are that you recognize that we didn't create ourselves and someone else did. Recognize that. And the guiding principles in relationship to how we treat one another, treat each other like we want to be treated. Simple enough. All the other things that's needed for us to manifest our dreams are already given. Recognize that everything belongs to God and not us, so we can't come in trying to claim nothing or take anything. And then with that, treat others like we want to be treated. And if we do so, if there are some viruses out there, make sure we come together and guarantee protection to one another from any virus that will come and corrupt us. That's God's idea. When we can do this, when we can work together cooperatively to the extent that we're experiencing peace and prosperity is there and we're joyous, then that would be an expression, that would be an acknowledgement that we have learned the secrets of life, deserving of paradise and heaven. That's our purpose, to learn that. Now the opposite of that is to not learn that. The opposite of that is to compete, to try to outdo one another. And may the best man win. It is the same attitude that was being exercised in Germany when they were talking about an Aryan nation. They were saying that some are superior to others. And that same attitude is present when we say this is the greatest nation on earth. That we are the greatest and smartest people on earth. And we can do this and we can do that above all. And our goal is to make sure we maintain this superiority. All that stuff, all of it, is from the opposite of what God would have. And so when you sit here talking about God, realize that when you say God, God is about a different story. Everything that you need to survive on this earth, whether you're with God or with the devil, is the same thing. Food, clothing, and shelter. Little education wouldn't hurt. Little health care wouldn't hurt. And a career wouldn't hurt. But those basic things has been provided for. And when you can operate and to the degree that these things are met, you're on the path. But this is not acceptable to the anti-God. No. You got to compete and go through hell. Well, I guess I'm going to have to stop here. I'm here to pick my kid up from school. And my thoughts will start running wild. I just wanted to make a note because I'll come back on this later. Bye-bye.